people were in awe of the way you have been a team leader, in the way you have stood up for your team. You've always rooted for them. You've always kind of had their back. And that was genuinely like heart touching. And
if somebody had told me that at 25, maybe even younger, that I would be sitting with Bill Gates, that I would be having a conversation with Satya Nadella, that I would be talking to Indra Nooyi. Today, everybody's talking about AI and so on and so forth, and the impact that it's going to have in the world. But to actually be able to connect the dots and say, hey, what is this really about? I didn't come in thinking that I was going to become an anchor or eventually rise to becoming managing editor. I didn't have a plan. My days were long. My working hours have been very, very long over the course of the last 25 years. But along the way, I was one of the youngest bureau chiefs probably across our industry in my early 20s. The amount I've learned, we're living in an era where it's this quest for breaking news. It's this quest for we got it right and we're exclusive.
Women in leadership positions often have to work twice as hard. True or false?
True.
Why?
I think because
she's the face of business news in India, breaking stories, interviewing global leaders, and shaping the way India understands finance, policy, and power. As the managing editor of CNBC TV18, she's not just reporting the news, she's leading conversations that define industries. I've got Shereen Bhan here with me today.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for that very kind introduction.
How does it feel to be introduced? I feel like you're always
it's always very embarrassing for me because, and especially when people start to read out your bio data, it makes me cringe a little bit. But I'm truly grateful for the fact that people invite you to things, people want to have a conversation, people are actually interested in listening to your story. And I think that for me it's taken some time to get used to the idea that someone's interested in listening to what I have to say. But I'm truly grateful for the opportunity. And so thank you very much for sitting down with me to chat.
No, of course. Welcome to the Masoom Minawala show. And we're more than interested to listen to your story because I truly think it's one of a kind and it's absolutely amazing the way you've done it all. And I want to kind of declare the intent before we dive into the questions and our conversation. And today, I really hope with our conversation that we can kind of break down and understand what it takes to be a successful journalist. But not just a journalist, right? You're a leader of the pack. So what does it take to be a leader of the pack across any industry? And then if someone listening, tuning in, aspires to be a journalist, pick up a path the way you have, how can we kind of drive simple, actionable insights for them?
Sure, happy to get into the conversation. And, whatever you want me to address, I'm happy to take that forward with you.
Thank you, Shereen. So you joined CNBC TV18 in 1999. Today, 25 years later, you are managing editor, still in the same organization. And I'm hiring right now, by the way, in my team. And when I'm looking at resumes, all I see is a 1-year stint. I mean, that's pretty much your average. How have you kind of stuck to the same job and done it so incredibly well?
Let me start by saying that when I joined CNBC TV18 25 years ago, it was actually on the day that the channel had turned one, on the very day that the channel had turned one. And I remember walking into the newsroom and it was completely lit up. There was balloons everywhere.
So
and
you were the birthday gift.
I thought, I was like, wow, what a welcoming organization. Till I realized that it was the first anniversary for the channel. So in many ways, I think, my journey has been interlinked in some strange way with the journey of the channel. And I didn't come in thinking that I was going to be here for 25 years. I didn't come in thinking that I was going to become an anchor or eventually rise to becoming managing editor. I didn't have a plan. What I did have, and I think it's important for everyone who's getting into whatever workforce, whatever kind of profession that you want to get into, is to have a natural curiosity about things. I think I came in with the idea of saying, look, whatever you throw my way, I'm going to take it and run with it. I'm going to try and own it as best as possible. So I think that mindset really helped me do things that perhaps my peers were not doing, because people, A, get used to their comfort zone. B, I think there is a hesitation in experimenting or exploring with things that you're not necessarily familiar with. And I decided fairly early on that, look, I want to give it a shot. And there's no downside to that. I didn't actually think of the upside, but I was just like, I'm going to give it a shot, and let's see how this works out. So my natural response was not to say no. My natural response was to say yes to whatever came my way. And that's, of course, had its own set of challenges, because I didn't, my days were long. My working hours have been very, very long over the course of the last 25 years. But along the way, the amount I've learned, and, I was one of the youngest bureau chiefs probably across our industry in my early 20s. And I think to have that kind of responsibility, to have the ability to lead a team at that age only came because of the fact that I had decided to say yes to things, that I had decided to push myself. I decided to try as much as I possibly could. So I think versatility has been a key strength for me personally. And I do believe that in the times that we live in, where, it's a multimedia world, it's a world where you need to be a content creator, you need to be a storyteller, you need to know how to do video and graphics and so on and so forth. I think versatility is going to be key to win in this era. And so I was lucky and fortunate enough to have discovered that pretty early on in my career. Second, I think, discipline. And I keep telling people this. My father was a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force. And so we've grown up in an environment where, going to work, getting stuff done was just part of your job, was your role and your responsibility and your duty. You didn't question that. And so similarly for me, when I came into the workforce, and if somebody told me, oh, you came in at 4 a.m, but we need you to do a show at like 10 o'clock at night, I was like, okay, fine. If that's what the job entails, I'm going to do it. And I think that, again, has given me a work ethic that's helped me explore many facets of my personality, many facets of my skills. And it's also given me a resilience that I think is very important. I think it's allowed me the ability to cope with many curveballs that have come my way. And I think we're going to, again, coming back, linking that to the world that we live in today, you've got to be adaptable. You've got to learn to deal with uncertainty. You've got to learn to deal with volatility. And so I think that my ability to be resilient through all kinds of situations, to learn to adapt and be agile, have also helped me. So these are the things that I tell young journalists who are walking into our newsroom. Have the innate desire to learn, have a natural curiosity, be open-minded, be flexible, be adaptable, be open to opportunities. And I think that really is important. And and I've always had an ownership mindset. I've never thought that I'm an employee. I've always come to work thinking that this is a startup. Wow. It's my startup. I'm building this brand. I'm a custodian of this brand.
How do you imbibe that? How do you imbibe the ownership mindset?
I think it's
in a job.
I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You've got to be passionate about the results that you will deliver on. And I think that's crucial. I think to have that sense of belonging to an organization or to a team, I think taking responsibility and ownership of the job that you've been given, I think that's very crucial. I think that mindset has been essential for me to have lasted 25 years. And also, I've treated this as a challenge that I give myself. And it's not something that I consciously did till maybe, a few years into my career, where I said, I'm going to try and do something new and something different every quarter. And I think in large organizations especially, we shouldn't wait for the team or our managers or the organization respond to our aspirations. We should be able to walk up to our team leader, our managers, and the organization and say, hey, I have an idea. Do you want me to take this forward? At best, they'll say no, but there's no harm in trying, right? And I think I did that. I'll give you an example, for instance.
I was just going to ask
Young Turks, we started that 23 years ago. Nobody was talking about startups in India. Nobody was focusing on entrepreneurship, on entrepreneurs, let alone first generation entrepreneurs. And we started this with the idea of creating a community of young entrepreneurs that we could have conversations with. And today, 23 years on, we've built the largest platform for startups anywhere in the world. So again, it was not something that the organization said, hey, we want to focus on this and can you do this for 25 years? It was something that I took ownership of with my team and said, we're passionate about this. We love what we're doing. We want to create this community. We believe in it. We have conviction. I think to have conviction is crucial as well. And we are here today having this conversation about a show that started 25 years ago. So I think that's how you
Yes,
build legacy.
absolutely. Startup is a buzzword today and in very recent times. And clearly you identified this decades ago. So kudos to that.
Thank
for sure.
you.
So we know that business journalism is a male dominated space. As a woman, do you think you've been underestimated in this industry?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I was underestimated. I think fairly early on, and kudos to my mentors, to the people that hired me, to the people that trained me, to the people who believed in me before I believed in myself. I remember my boss giving me a show that I used to co-anchor with Karan Thapar, who was actually my first boss. So imagine this situation where 3 days a week he's doing a show and then twice a week I'm doing the very same show. And this is somebody I started my career with. He was my first boss. But, it was my then boss, Raghavel, who said, I think you can do it. So it's very important to also surround yourself with people who have a vision for you before you have a vision for yourself, to believe in you before you even believe in yourself. So that they never underestimated me. In fact, if anything, I underestimated my own ability and my own power and my own skill. So I don't think that I was ever underestimated. And I think I've worked very, very hard. I've done 18-hour days for 2 decades now. And what has been perhaps the thing that I've held very, very close to my heart is I've never wanted someone to walk away after having done an interview with me to say that was a waste of my time. I've never wanted to walk out of a show myself and say that was a waste of my time. So I feel like we cannot take our viewers, our readers, our subscribers' time for granted.
Ever for granted.
They
I
come
agree
to
with
us. They come to us. There's, for value. They come to us for learning or impact or whatever the case is. You have to leave them with something. And that's always driven me. So no, I don't think I've been underestimated, but I think I've been fairly hard on myself over the last many years. I'm never fully satisfied with what I do. I've always believed that I could have done that better. And I think that's what also keeps me going. But I've tried not to do that as much anymore because, I think that we need to pull back on the criticism, the self-criticism. So I think that I've learned to kind of balance that out a little bit more now.
That's interesting. That's interesting for sure. Women in leadership positions often have to work twice as hard. True or false?
True.
Why?
I think because there is the judgment and the scrutiny is real. And
Okay.
I think that, the world is looking at you from a certain lens of, are you good enough? Will you deliver? And I think that because women have not been in decision-making roles, I think people generally underestimate their ability to make decisions. And so I think that women have had to try harder, have had to do harder, have had to work harder. And I think that continues to be the case even today. One is, of course, the external, but it's also the internal, right? Because women are constantly juggling different roles, are constantly juggling different priorities. And I think, again, going back to the point that I was making, that we're very hard on ourselves. I think it is that perfection penalty that we live with. And that often does get in the way of us fully realizing our true potential, because we somehow tend to hold back because we believe that if we're not perfect at it, we shouldn't raise our hands. And men are not usually thinking like that. Men are like, okay, give me an opportunity, I'll do it. It doesn't matter how I perform. So I think women, we're wired into thinking that if we don't do this 100%, well, we shouldn't do it at all. And I think that is something that I've also learned to kind of find make my peace with. And it's okay, we'll make mistakes, we might fail, but the downside of not trying is to not have experienced something new, to not have
Mm.
experienced something different, to not have tried at all. So I think it's important for women to not let either the external judgment and scrutiny or the internal doubt and the perfection penalty get in the way of truly going out there and just getting stuff done.
That's true. I know that a lot of women face that. I think perfection penalty. I love the way you kind of put it there because that's something I deal with as well. And yeah, maybe I'm going to take your notes and learn how to kind of combat that for sure.
Well, I think these conversations are really about learning from,
Yeah.
and there's so much to learn from you and the way that you've built this creator empire for yourself. So it's giving me lots of stuff to learn from as well.
No, thank you. I was just telling you before we started rolling, but one of my favorite interviews is the one I've done for one of your shows, which is Future Female Forward at CNBC
And I'm
TV18.
so glad that you were a part of that, because the idea of Future Female Forward is to really encourage women to acknowledge that there are all of these spaces that we don't need to shrink away from, and we should occupy all of these spaces. And it's for men in decision making roles to understand that a diverse workforce, a balanced workforce, is not just important. It's the smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and it's the
It's in
good.
everyone's benefit.
Absolutely. And I think that's been the reason why we launched this campaign 3 years ago, and we're now on to season 3, and I'm glad that you've been part of it as well.
Thank you. So, what makes a good journalist?
I think a good journalist definitely needs to have curiosity. I think a good journalist needs to have the ability to think on their feet. I think a good journalist needs to have the ability to connect the dots, to look at history, to look at the past, look at the future, and look at the present, and be able to make sense of it. I think a good journalist needs to have the ability to be fair, to be just, to be honest, to be transparent. I think a good journalist has to be a good storyteller.
Mm.
And really, journalism is not about, it's not about wanting to go out there and change the world. Yes, sometimes a story can in fact change the world. In fact, uh, we've had stories not just in India but the world over that have driven change and have brought about great impact. But I think just honest storytelling, shining the light on things that matter, on things that are relevant, on things that concern you and me. I think that's what good storytelling is about. That's what good journalism is about. And I say this to my team. We're living in an era where it's this quest for breaking news. It's this quest for we got it right and we're exclusive and so on and so forth. I think a good journalist always ensures that they stand in the corner of accuracy. They stand in the corner of diligence. They stand in the corner of facts, and they get it right. Being right is more important than being first. And that is something that's always driven our newsroom. And I hope it always continues to drive our newsroom, because, you have to realize that once a story is out,
There's not much you can do.
no, and if it's an honest mistake, that's fine. But if it's because of carelessness, or it's because of a lack of due diligence, or if it's mallified, then it's on you. Then it is on you. The consequences, and the consequences can be significant, are on you. So, I think we take our jobs very, very seriously, and we're dealing with money, because we're dealing with business decisions and decisions that impact the stock markets. And
Absolutely, the entire economy.
it's not just reputation and money. So we take what we do very, very seriously. I'm obsessed with quality. I'm obsessed with checking whether we've got the right information, how it's been sourced, how much due diligence has gone into it. So I think journalism is really about being able to, as I said, shine a light on things that matter, on things that should concern us as a society, as a nation, as a people. And I think too much time these days, unfortunately, is spent on things that really don't matter. They don't matter beyond, some debate in some television studio. They don't matter to the lives of real people. And I think that's what we're losing focus of. That's what we're losing out on. And when people say people are tuning out of the news, why are they tuning out of the news? Because what you're providing to them is not news, because it's not relevant to their daily lives. It's not relevant to them making smart, informed decisions or smart, informed choices. And that's why I believe that the news is facing an existential crisis in India today. And I think it's incumbent on people in this business to wake up and smell the coffee before it's too late.
What do you say to a woman that wants to become a journalist but finds the entire space challenging or overwhelming, right? I think there's been a lot of chatter about, say, safety issues, especially in sensational journalism.
Well, to start with, stay away from sensational journalism.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that kind of journalism at all. But I think it is challenging, and I don't want to sugarcoat this, because I keep telling people that journalism is really like being in law enforcement or being in the medical profession, because you're on call 24/7. I cannot say, if a story has happened, I cannot say, hey, it's my birthday today, or it's my anniversary today, or it's I have something important to do. If it's a significant news development, then you've got to be there. So one, recognize the fact that this is what the job entails. And then if you're ready to sign up for that, then sign up for it. But if not, if you think that this is glamorous, you're going to be on TV, you're going to get your hair and makeup done and so on and so forth, that's literally 5% of what the job description is. You're going to be standing, and sometimes for a story, you're going to have to stand outside a ministry to get a coat for hours, 8 hours, 9 hours maybe. You're going to be standing outside in 45 degrees in Delhi or in Bombay to be able to track a story without even having time to go to loo break. So this is not for the faint-hearted, and this is certainly not for people who are not consciously and passionately interested in the news. So I keep saying this: if you don't, if the news is not your thing, if it doesn't give you a kick in your stomach, if you're not hungry for the news, then stay away from this, because it takes a toll not just on your physical being, but it also takes a toll on your mental and emotional being, because this is a 24/7 operation. It's live. In most cases, it's live. And the stress levels of being in a live environment are completely different. It's almost like being in a pressure cooker, right? So you have to have the physical, the emotional, and mental resilience to want to do this, to want to put yourself through this. And you should only put yourself through this if you really love it, and if you really care about it, and if that truly drives you. So, not just for women, but also for men.
And I hope after this conversation, people actually turn to becoming
I really
journalists.
hope so. I do hope so. I think we need good people in journalism. It doesn't pay that well, so that's a problem. But I think that what it gives you is such a wonderful view of the world. If somebody had told me that at 25 or maybe even younger, that I would be sitting with Bill Gates, that I would be having a conversation with Satya Nadella, that I would be talking to Indra Nooyi, that I would be having a conversation with Benazir Bhutto. I mean, I couldn't have imagined it. I could not have imagined it. And what other profession gives you the opportunity to do that, to meet incredible people, to go to different places in the world, to report on things that really shape the world that we're living in today? I mean, today everybody's talking about AI and so on and so forth, and the impact that it's going to have in the world. But to actually be able to connect the dots and say, hey, what is this really about? What is this going to do? What is it going to do to people? What is it going to do to jobs? What is it going to do for people like you and me? Will we still be having this conversation, or will we be replaced? I think the ability to get that ringside view, be part of that, and be able to tell that story is what makes it so wonderful and beautiful.
I'm going to pick your brains on everything that the visionaries part that you just spoke about. But before that, for Women's Day, we have a special segment which is called Strengthen Every Bond. And I want to ask you, Your story, Shireen, is one of strength, resilience, and tons of innovation. What is that one bond for you that has helped you in this path?
I would say that, I've had the I've been very lucky that I've been surrounded by women who have been passionate about whatever they do. While growing up, I've seen my grandmothers, I've seen my aunts, I've seen my mother, I've seen, these amazing women who've not been constrained by their circumstances, who've not been constrained by what society expects of them and so on and so forth. So I've seen these women who've done amazing things, and so for me it's always been natural. Like it was never an option that are you going to work. It was never an option for me and my sister. We never thought that it was a choice that we could not work. We didn't think
Yeah.
that existed.
It
That
was in your
it was
subconscious.
in our subconscious because that's what we've grown up with. So I think the bond that I have with all the women in my life, within my family, within my friend circle, and just, wonderful women that I've had the pleasure of meeting, of being mentored by. I think that's the bond that I cherish the most because
Mm.
it's really given me the ability, the confidence, and the belief and the strength to say, look, we're here on this planet to get something done. The only thing holding us back is our own aspiration. In some cases, it's the lack of support. How can we create a much more enabling environment? Can I do something to create a much more enabling environment to pay it forward? Because I've been fortunate that I had
I've
this
had it.
ecosystem
Yes.
that supported me, that believed in me, that drove me, that pushed me. Can I do something to create that ecosystem for people who don't have it? I think that's the bond that I now want to create on the back of the bond that helped me get to where I am today.
And what about, or maybe could you share one instance or one incident with one of these bonds that has really helped you find the strength in your journey?
There have been.
Because I think it's so important, right? We need these people to kind of turn to, and it's never an individual journey.
No, it's never an individual journey. It takes a village, it takes a city, it takes, a lot to actually get people to truly achieve their potential. And especially when we talk about women, I, I'll take you back to conversations that I've had with both men and women who've kind of shaped my journey and helped me make the choices that I've made. I remember, Indra Nui telling me that, if she could wear a t-shirt that said I'm guilty, she would get a t-shirt to say that I'm guilty because that's just how that was her lived experience. She said it didn't matter if
Mm.
she was the CEO of one of America's largest corporations when she was heading PepsiCo, but at the back of her head she always felt that, was I a good enough mother, was I doing well enough at my job, and so on and so forth. And I think that, again, coming back to the perfection penalty, we guilt ourselves for the choices that we make. And I think today, as I look at young women and as I look at all the opportunities available, I hope that um, we'll we'll have the confidence to not see our choices as selfish, but to see our choices from the lens of self interest. And I think we need to start to make that distinction. I think for too long, women have
Yes.
been told that if you do something for yourself, you're selfish.
Selfish.
If you sacrifice, you're great. And I think this difference between self interest and sacrifice and selfishness and self awareness is very, very important for us to acknowledge and recognize and share and talk about as women. So that's the conversation that I had with Indra Nui that I always kind of think about. And another conversation that I had, not a woman but a man, with N.R. Narayanamurthy, the founder of Infosys, and someone that I've had the pleasure of knowing for 20 plus years and pleasure of interviewing for many, many years. And he always told me something. He said, uh, you know, we chase after, in the world that we live in, we chase after money, we chase after titles, we chase after, roles and so on and so forth. He said, we don't chase after respect enough. Can we have a most respectable index? Can we have a most respectable list? And I think that's also important to me. It's not just what you accomplish in life, but it's also how you
you do
accomplish
it.
it.
Yes.
I think that's something that means something to me, and that is again something that I try and
And I will actually tie this back to what you said a few minutes ago about journalism, right? About kind of staying in your corner,
Yeah.
and making sure you're accountable and being able to do it with grace.
Yes.
Which is so important to be able to gain that respect.
No,
and not just chase sort of the first break.
Yeah, absolutely. I think humility, grace, gratitude, dignity. I think these are things that are very, very important to me. And again, it goes back to, as I said, how we were brought up, the environment that we grew up in, the values that we were taught as children. And I think there's no replacement. There's no replacement for these are at your core. These are your fundamental values. You can build on top of them. As they say, you have the foundational models and then you can build the applications on top of them. I think these are really the fundamental values that drive us as people, and then you can build layers on top of that. But
you have to get that right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you have to figure out what it means for you. I mean, and what you want to prioritize. I mean, these are things that I want to prioritize. These are things that make sense to me. These are things that are important to me. I think it boils down to everybody's own individual choices and perspective. But these are things that matter to me as an individual.
So as you talk about individuality, in fact, the most important bond we have is the one with ourselves, right? How do you celebrate that bond? What is your, how do you strengthen that bond with resilience and continue to celebrate it?
Again, I think it comes with time, it comes with experience, and it comes with also just having gone through the world, so to speak. And I think, again, as women, we're very often so consumed by how the external world sees you, how other people see you, that we very often tend to ignore building that relationship with ourselves,
absolutely.
right? And I think that this is something that I've started to build much more on in the last 10 years, to see what is important to me. And I remember telling a friend of mine this on a show that we did together. And I said, my biggest mistake or my biggest regret was that whenever I needed to make a choice, I would strike myself off my to-do list. I have now learned to put myself back onto the to-do list, onto my to-do list, because nobody else is going to do it for you, right?
Yes.
So I think that's been a realization for me, that it's important to build time. It's important to make space for who I am, who I want to be, what matters to me, what I want to do. I think so putting myself back on my to-do list has been a realization, has been a learning, and is something now I'm starting to enjoy to do. But I think you have to be mindful of it. You have to be conscious of it. And again, this business of sacrifice. Why do we sacrifice what's important to us? So why do we sacrifice what matters to us for somebody else, for something else? I think that realization has been important to me. And again, it's not, this is something that on my podcast, Arundhati Bhattacharya said, the former State Bank of India chairperson said, which I think is so important for all women. She said, a fulfilled woman is a better woman. And I so agree with that, because if you're going to be feeling resentful, you're going to be feeling bitter, you're going to be disappointed, you're going to be hurt and upset because you feel like you could have done something and the world didn't allow you to, or you yourself didn't allow you to, or you made sacrifices, I think you then start to operate from a place of being resentful and being bitter, or just being unfulfilled. So I think, a fulfilled woman in her words is a better woman. And I so truly agree with that.
So what's important to you? What do you like when you're prioritizing yourself and pushing yourself slowly but steadily up that to-do list?
I,
What does that mean in the simplest ways?
well, today, I think my biggest priority is to be able to take time out for to do what I totally enjoy, what keeps me sane, emotionally, mentally, physically, is my yoga. And again, it's been such a long journey. I used to start and then I used to stop. I used to start and I used to stop because I have to get to work. I have this engagement or I have that, and so on and so forth. And it would always come at the cost of wanting to do something for myself. And now I made a commitment that I enjoy this. It makes me better as an individual. It makes me better as a leader. It teaches me skills that have helped me grow as a person. So why am I not committing myself to this just as I would commit myself to doing a show or to doing a story? So so that is very, very important to me. I think just learning much more is important to me. I think I'm willing to make time for things that I ordinarily would not have. Going to see a show. I'm getting back to music, which again I kind of stopped because where's the time? So
Do you sing?
I a little bit. I mean, I used to, but a little bit. But just finding. I think this where is the time has to be replaced with how do I find the time? I think we have to start asking the question, how do I find the time, as opposed to the statement, where is the time? So I think that's the journey that I'm on currently today.
And it's one that you should be very, very proud of.
Well, I don't know if I'm proud of it just yet because I don't have that many wins. But nevertheless, at least I'm trying. I'm trying, and I think that's the best that we can do.
So I want to take you back to, you very interestingly spoke about how you've had the great opportunity and privilege to sit down with one of the world's, most of the world's visionaries and leaders. What has been that one common, characteristic that you've seen in all these leaders?
I think without a doubt, just the sheer passion for what they do. And the belief, the conviction, the courage to say, we're going to do this, in spite of all of the challenges, the resilience to continue, the perseverance, the patience. I think that has unequivocally been the common sort of attributes, the underlying traits that I've picked up from all of these people, many of whom we just spoke about, who have created something of value, who've created wealth for shareholders, who've made an impact on society. I think fundamentally it started with the idea of wanting to do something that hadn't been done before, or wanting to do something better than the way that it had been done before. But just the sheer passion of wanting to do something, I think that has been absolutely crucial. And then having the grit and the determination to say,
to see it through.
See it through. So often, we may have great ideas, but then you don't have the stomach, you don't have the patience, you don't have the risk-taking ability to see it through. So I think the ability to see something through is probably what ties all of these people together as well.
So Shereen, you're an extremely confident woman. I've always known it, but even when I speak to you, you radiate that. But has there ever been a moment of self-doubt in your journey?
Oh, all the time. I think and it's a wonderful learning that a friend of mine told me, and again, this is something that I take very seriously. And he said, we always compare our insides to somebody else's outsides, and especially in a social media world, right? You feel like, okay, my world is falling apart, but then you look at everybody else's stories and reels, and everyone's having this great time and living their best life. But that we also need to realize that that what you often put out in public spaces is what you want the world to see. It's a projection. It may not necessarily be your truth. It may not necessarily be the truth at all. So of course there's self-doubts. Of course there's moments of panic. There's moments of nervousness. There's moments of anxiety. There's moments of feeling lost. And there's moments of saying, just being unsure. So I think and that's okay. I think one of the other things that I've realized over time, and again it comes with experience and having been through a lot of the stuff that I've been through, is that it's okay, and it will pass. And I don't let it weigh me down anymore. I don't, even when I have the moments of anxiety and panic and doubt and nerves and all of that, I'm very conscious of the fact that it will pass.
Yes.
And
I know the
it
feeling.
may not be a better day, but it'll be a different day.
Yes.
And I think that's also
Yes.
important, because we so much of the stuff that we deal with today is this sort of affirmation and manifestation and so on and so forth. And I'm not dissing any of that, but I'm saying this constant need to feel better. I think I focus on the fact that it's going to be different. I may
Yes.
not feel necessarily better, but I'll definitely feel different. And I think for me, that's been an important lens and an important realization to deal with as well. But yeah, I think it's an absolute lie to even suggest that there are no moments of doubt or there are no moments of crisis or panic or anxiety, because I think on a daily basis
There
you
is.
deal with
And
that
and I
on a
think,
daily basis.
yes, and I think it's a part of the process, right? I think the process would be no fun if they weren't there, right? If that crippling fear for just those 5 minutes when nothing is kind of going your way, because you won't enjoy the climb if that's not a part of the climb at all.
And I think what failure often teaches you, I think success very rarely does. I think failure pushes you to dig very deep into your being. It pushes you to dig very deep into your reserves and pull out everything that you possibly can from inside you. Because you can't. The world can't come to your rescue. Then you've got to come to your rescue. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to be surrounded by people who stand up for you, who will stand with you, who will support you, who might even give you a shoulder. If you're lucky, you'll have that. But on most days, you're going to have to dig into your reserves. And as I say, like when you can see that needle in your car, when your gas tank is almost at empty, and then you're like, okay, let me just stretch a little bit more. Let me just stretch it a little bit more. Those are the days where you truly test your own resilience. And sometimes you surprise yourself with your own resilience as well. I think very often we underestimate our own resilience.
That's a wonderful ending note. Thank you so much, Shereen. It's been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wonderful insights. I'm definitely leaving inspired.
Well, I hope that this has been something that that you expected. I don't know if I've met up to the intention, or if I've matched the
Shireen, you're
expectations.
amazing.
But
No,
thank you.
but you're amazing. I mean, it's so evident. You have this absolute charisma. For me off the camera, but on the camera, I can see, right? And you know your job. I think that's a huge part of even what you do today, and you've perfected it all. And I have to tell you I have to share with everyone actually that's tuned in today. That's something that I told you before we started rolling, is that this is something that I do with the guests that I kind of bring on. And they are all extremely esteemed guests, quite like you. But I still like to kind of, do a reference call.
Yes.
And
do due diligence. You're a good journalist.
No, thank you. And, the idea is to basically understand what is that offline impression of the person, right? What is that kind of candid impression? When you're chatting with a friend, what do they share about that person? Because when you're talking about somebody without any cameras on, in the most candid way possible, you really get the real juice out there. And Shereen, the things I've heard about you is...
I shudder to think.
No, it's really, really amazing. Like it's one of a kind. People were in awe of the way you have been a team leader, in the way you have stood up for your team. You've always rooted for them. You've always kind of had their back. And that was genuinely like heart touching. And I think that's what's inspiring, right? To someone like me, that I found was extremely inspiring. They said how you have, everything else, you're a perfectionist, yes, but you've worked so hard first to come to the office, last to leave. So if there's, you've kind of proved what a leader needs to be and how they need to be by doing the job, right? Not by describing how it needs to be done, by
Yeah.
first doing it and kind of saying that, okay, now learn by my example. And your team has been very, very receptive of that. And, they've always said that, this is the best person to work with, to be mentored under, because she has your best interests at heart. And I can tell that this is such a close cause to you.
Well,
So.
That's very kind of whoever said that. Thank you, thank you very much. But no, as I was telling you, I think, and again, I keep telling people, because you see us on camera. And you think that this is our journey. It's not. There's a whole army of people that work to make the magic happen, and it would be terribly ungrateful of me to not acknowledge the work that goes into putting my shows together, the team that works with me to make sure that I look as good as I do, if that's the impression that people have. But I think this is not a profession for the soul ranger. It requires people to come together. And I truly, my leadership lesson, if I could leave you with that, is that leaders have to walk the talk. You cannot expect people to do what you're not willing to do yourself. You cannot expect people to do 70-hour days or 90-hour days or whatever the case may be, which is the current debate, if you're not willing to do that yourself. And I'm not advocating 70 or 90-hour days, by the way. I'm just saying that at points in your career, you will require long hours, and especially in journalism, that is a job you signed up for. That is what it will entail. But I think as leaders, it's very important for us to be empathetic. It's also very important for us to demonstrate leadership, and it's very important for us to demonstrate the kind of qualities that we expect to see in our team or from our team. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the love. I'm grateful for all the support, and I'm really grateful to my team. I have a fabulous team, and lucky to have very little attrition. Most people have been around for 10, 15 years. So it's wonderful to have built this brand together with the team that I work with.
Amazing. Thank you once again, Shereen.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for speaking with me.
No, thank you for agreeing to be here and for taking out your time in your very busy schedule while you're traveling and while you're not at home. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much.